Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
It has made me be a little bit more cautious.
A woman in the Kootenays is credited with driving away 2 grizzly bears after her husband is mauled in what's being called a defensive attack. Plus,
no surprise, no fear.
A Richmond activist shows defiance as police in Hong Kong issue another wave of overseas arrest warrants. And
we need the same per capita funding, the same per person funding.
BC's Premier demands Ottawa show him the money for ferries as more cash goes to Atlantic Canada.
There is a constitutional obligation by Ottawa to take care of those services.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Conservation officers say a grisly attack on a couple in the BC Kootenays over the weekend was defensive. A man was rushed to hospital badly hurt. As Chad Pawson reports, his wife is credited with driving the animals away with bear spray.
A popular outdoor area near Creston in southwestern BC closed after a grizzly bear attack over the weekend sent one man to hospital with serious injuries.
It has made me be a little bit more cautious because it's an area that I frequent a lot.
I usually carry some bear spray. Better to have it than not.
Always be aware. You have to be aware. We live in a forest.
RCMP says on Saturday the husband and wife were biking here in the Creston Valley Wildlife Management Area along the Kootenay River when conservation officers responded to calls around 4:30 p.m. They say the wife heard her husband scream, saw a grizzly bear running at her, and used bear spray to chase it off. She then noticed a second grizzly bear attacking her husband. She again used bear spray and both animals ran off. Emergency responders took the husband to hospital in Cranbrook where he underwent surgery. Conservation officers now say the bear's actions were defensive. A grizzly expert says it's possible the couple on their e-bikes simply came upon the bears too quickly and quietly.
Unfortunately, startling a bear is, one of the things that these conflicts arrive as a result of.
Grizzly bear attacks in BC are rare, but human conflict with the animals is not. Conservation officers receive around 800 calls each year. Creston's mayor, a former conservation officer himself, says there have been efforts to restore grizzly bear populations in the area.
There's up to 15 grizzly bears living here, and these bears have become generational here. And maybe in the past, when food wasn't so abundant in the valley, they would have moved through the valley and scoured the hills for food. But now we have silage crops for the dairy farmers that the corn is mature in late summer.
Officials say this attack could have been far worse had the couple not had bear spray. They want others going into grizzly country to make sure they have the spray with them and know how to use it. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, as you heard, officials urging you to know how to use bear spray if you're out in bear country. Here's a quick how-to from Yukon's Hunter Education Outreach Officer.
Spray. With a small amount of training, it's safe. We're going to get big, identify ourselves as human. Hey, whoa, bear, stop. I'm going to pull my bear spray out, remove the top cap, 3 to 5 second deployment in a circle or a Z pattern. So we really feel strongly that that's the best tool.
Experts also remind you not to run away if you encounter a grizzly. A man is presumed drowned in the Coquihalla River after falling into the water near the Othello tunnels near Hope. Police say a search is underway to recover his body from the river in Coquihalla Canyon Provincial Park. Hope RCMP received a report he fell in just after 6 p.m. on Saturday. A search and rescue team used a raft to rescue a bystander who got stranded, trying to find the victim. First responders believe the young man from the Merritt area was trapped below the surface due to strong currents. Those tunnels are now closed until further notice. Police in Agassiz are investigating after a body was found in a burning car. Mounties say they responded late Sunday to a report of a vehicle fire in the community of Popcom. Foul play is suspected, so homicide detectives are now in charge. Police in Hong Kong have issued a fresh wave of arrest warrants for 19 activists overseas, including some here in BC. Ottawa is condemning that move, calling it a threat to Canadian safety and sovereignty. As Michelle Gassoub reports, one activist here on the Lower Mainland is standing firm.
No surprise, no fear.
Victor Ho of Richmond has a bounty on his name. He's one of 19 activists for whom police in Hong Kong have issued arrest warrants, offering cash rewards for information leading to their capture.
I just exercise my freedom of speech, freedom of expression in Canadian soil. It is crazy.
Ho, a Canadian citizen, is a member of a group called Hong Kong Parliament, a committee formed in Toronto in 2022 that advocates for self-determination for Hong Kong. He's accused of violating a national security law imposed by Beijing, a move condemned by democracy advocates here.
This is really just, scare tactics for the people still in Hong Kong. I don't believe they really have any ability to arrest people overseas.
Ottawa is also pushing back strongly. A joint statement from the Ministers of Public Safety and Foreign Affairs says the actions taken by Hong Kong threaten the sovereignty of Canada and security of the people in this country. This attempt by Hong Kong authorities to conduct transnational repression abroad, including by issuing threats, intimidation, or coercion against Canadians or those in Canada, will not be tolerated. Hong Kong police say the group is using illegal means to overthrow and undermine institutions in China and Hong Kong, allegations the activists deny.
We tell the people the truth that the government of Hong Kong or China, they don't want your people have any right to vote.
Their supporters say the goal of the warrant is to create a chilling effect among activists.
This really undermines our democracy here, because we no longer feel completely free to exercise our rights.
There are at least 2 other activists with warrants out for their arrests who are also based in the Lower Mainland. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
The man accused of killing the brother of the Lapu Lapu Day Festival suspect has now pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. Dwight William Kamach was charged with killing Alexander Lowe. It happened in the early hours of late January of last year at a home near Knight Street and East 33rd Avenue in Vancouver. Kamach's sentencing hearing is scheduled for August 11th. Alexander Lowe is the brother of Adam Lowe. He is accused of driving an SUV through a crowd at the Lapu Lapu Day Festival in Vancouver in April. 11 people were killed. BC's Premier is not pleased with a move by the Prime Minister to cut ferry fares in Atlantic Canada. Mark Carney did promise to slash what customers pay there during the federal election. But as Katie DeRosa reports, David Eby says it's yet another example of BC getting a raw deal from Ottawa.
It's good news for ferry users in Atlantic Canada.
We're reducing the tariffs, the fares, by 50% for passengers, for vehicles, for commercial traffic on eastern ferries.
But on this coast, Mark Carney's announcement is leaving BC's Premier asking, what about us?
We have to watch the federal government show up on the East Coast and subsidize ferry users that already get a $300 subsidy per each $1 that a BC ferry user gets.
David Eby says it's yet another example of BC getting an unfair shake from Ottawa. He says despite BC paying out billions in equalization payments to so-called have-not provinces, it does not get the same per capita funding for transportation or ferry service.
It's time for them to up the federal subsidy that is unchanged for almost 20 years.
Nanaimo's mayor agrees.
British Columbians, who are, 5+ million strong, are subsidizing ferries on the East Coast with our tax dollars when we're not getting it back.
But the head of the Canadian Ferry Association says Ottawa's deal with Atlantic Canada dates back to Confederation.
There is a constitutional obligation by Ottawa to take care of those services.
It's a deal negotiated when the Atlantic provinces joined Confederation in 1867 and requires Ottawa to subsidize ferry service that connects Newfoundland to the rest of the country. Federal Transport Minister Chrystia Freeland was not available for an interview, but in a statement, her office says when it comes to the operating costs for ferries, funding is focused on constitutionally mandated and interprovincial ferry services. Amid the funding flap is BC Ferry's plan to have its 4 new vessels built by a Chinese shipyard using a $1 billion loan from the Canada Infrastructure Bank. Freeland said she was disappointed and dismayed by that decision, and the House of Commons Transport Committee plans to study the loan. But EB notes the same Chinese shipyard built the newest vessel for Marine Atlantic without similar backlash. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
People living in an East Vancouver neighborhood say they are fed up with truck traffic detoured from the Port of Vancouver. More than a decade ago, the authorities said rerouting the trucks would be a temporary measure. But as Keir Junos reports, the rigs may be here to stay.
Well, I'm here at Dundas and Templeton Streets in Vancouver's Hastings Sunrise neighborhood. You can hear the trucks loudly rolling by me, and for years this has kept the residents up at night, all because of ongoing route changes since at least 2011. The residents say they were promised that this would be temporary, but they're now learning it might be permanent.
The container trucks are just blasting through the road, going uphill, revving the engines, shaking the building, rattling the windows.
I think we're betrayed because we trust or compromise with that temporary thing. Temporary traffic going, and then later it's going to dissolve.
Here's the traffic problem. Northbound trucks used to use the Clark Drive ramp and bypassed much of the adjacent neighborhood. But for years, trucks have been taking a different route. It means those big, noisy trucks come north along Powell, Dundas, and then Nanaimo to McGill, along where there are homes and schools.
Just the other day, I saw a truck run a red light. I witnessed a car accident last year where a container truck drove over a small sedan. So the safety implications for this community with young children are huge.
Residents want the Clark Drive entrance open again. The Port of Vancouver didn't make someone available for an interview, but in a statement told CBC News the entrance doesn't work anymore for inbound trucks. But changes have been made to improve traffic flow and congestion, stage trucks in other areas, reduce emissions with technology, reduce the number of trucks, and keep truck activity to the weekdays in the daytime. Vancouver's transportation director says it's ultimately up to the port to decide how it uses its gates. Paul Storer says the port is currently collecting data on the number of trucks and where they're coming from, and says he expects to hear some options from the port in the fall.
If there is a way to work with the port to reduce the number of trucks there, whether that's opening the Clark Drive entry or some other way, we'll look at that.
But the neighbors say they're fed up and need a solution now, as it appears they're going to endure more noise and smoke for the rest of the summer or longer. Keir Junos, CBC News, Vancouver.
Premier David Eby used BC's latest call for more power sources to invite American clean energy producers to the province. This after President Donald Trump criticized, quote, ugly windmills in Scotland.
We believe that climate change is real, that we understand that we have a role to play here in British Columbia in driving down emissions. And I couldn't help but notice the President of the United States, Donald Trump, saying that he doesn't like those windmills that produce electricity. They interfere with the views from his golf courses.
Eby adds American clean energy companies would be welcome to build their electricity projects here in BC. Last year's call for power pitches led to 10 clean projects, 9 majority Indigenous owned. This year's call is asking for companies to contribute to the 5,000 gigawatt hours per year target. Pride Week has officially kicked off in Vancouver with the raising of the Pride flag at City Hall.
Vancouver stands firmly with these communities, and we'll always defend your right to be who you are.
Mayor Ken Sim and councillors helped raise the flag. On Sunday, the Pride Parade will wrap up the month-long celebration. Vancouver's parade is one of the largest in North America, but this year's route is much shorter, as organizers admit corporate sponsorships are down nearly $400,000 from last year. Darius Madavi is here for his first look at the weather, and you've got some lightning on the screen.
That's right. We saw some lightning down in the southeastern corner of the province today, Dan, and as we see that move over into Alberta, things are calming down. Those severe thunderstorm warnings that we had in parts of the southeast have since come down. We do still have some extreme heat warnings in parts of the southern interior, boundary region, and up into the Caribou and up around Prince George. So keeping an eye on that over the next few days, as those temperatures are expected to continue to rise. Now, that is having an impact on the fire danger. We have seen some hotter, drier weather in the southern interior, and so we're seeing that fire danger climb once again. We've been highest to most extreme on the coast of BC, but it looks like the interior is now starting to catch up, even as temperatures continue to climb here on the coast as well.
Okay, Darius, thanks very much.
Thank you.
BC winemakers say they're losing business in Alberta because the province is taking a bigger taste of sales. That story after. Accidental drownings claim dozens of lives every year in BC. Our Michelle Gomez went to Cultus Lake recently to see prevention in action.
A day on the water could be the best day of your summer or the worst. On average, 76 people die in British Columbia every year in accidental drownings, and experts say most of these are preventable. That's why we're here at Cultus Lake today learning about water safety.
You're a parent, that you're supervising your children, ensuring that everyone is wearing a life jacket or a personal flotation device. If you do not know how to swim, you're better to stay on the shore. That being said, it's never too late to take swimming lessons, whether you're young or old.
I'm always putting my kids in life jackets too, actually. The younger daughter, she can't swim, and we haven't been able to get her in swimming lessons. So I just wish I could get my kids to have the same training I did.
As you can see, I picked the brightest suit I could find.
Always an eyesight. If they don't know how to swim, then within arm's reach. Obviously, our little one there, you can see she's not a very good swimmer, so we make sure she's got a life jacket on.
This one's gonna fit? All right.
What do I need to do to keep myself safe in a lake?
It's important if you are unfamiliar of the waters to just gain a bit of basic knowledge. Diving off cliffs, you need to be aware of underwater hazards. The water can be very, very cold, even in the summertime. Mixing drugs, alcohol with swimming is a bad concoction. Yeah, rivers definitely present more of a challenge. They're typically fed by glaciers. They can be colder than our lakes. And going into the swift water, especially once it starts getting deeper than the length of your arm, it would be very, very hard to self-rescue yourself. Oceans, preparation is very important, making sure we're looking at the weather, making sure we're looking at what the tides are doing. Winds can pick up very, very quickly.
If someone finds themselves in a situation where they feel like they're in over their head, they're starting to feel unsafe,
try to swim to a buoy, to a flotation device, a dock, yell for help.
Michelle Gomez reporting. BC winemakers say business is souring in Alberta because the province now takes a bigger cut of every bottle sold there. More now from Kyle Bax.
One by one, a batch of sparkling rosé is bottled by hand at the Lightning Rock Winery. If these bottles end up being sold in Alberta, their price tag will be noticeably higher. That's because of new fees introduced by the Alberta government this year.
On a $30 bottle of wine, it works out to approximately between 28 and 32%.
The fees come at a time when governments are looking to reduce trade barriers between provinces. Alberta often boasts about leading the way on improving trade.
This new way of working together across provincial borders will benefit the people of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario, and ultimately all people across Canada.
They're saying one thing nationally, but then they're penalizing us on the other side.
It's been 3 months since Alberta's fees were added, and now wineries are really starting to feel the pinch.
Our online sales dropped almost 30–40%. Kind of slap on the face, to be honest with you, for a lot of BC wineries.
Here's how it works. Beginning in April, Alberta increased its flat fee on wine, plus added an extra charge that goes up, depending on the price of the bottle, up to 15%.
Beautiful bottle of BC rosé.
A year ago, the premiers of both provinces announced a new program for BC wineries to ship directly to drinkers in Alberta. Wineries were delighted, but the new fees have washed away the excitement.
It's frustrating, to be honest with you. We had a deal in place, and then it really feels to us like Alberta has just screwed this up.
The Minister for Service Alberta says Alberta believes in free and open trade, and it's open to finding opportunities to improve it. The agreement with BC is reducing red tape, making it easier for Albertans to buy BC wine, but still ensuring wineries pay the fees Alberta collects on liquor sales. Some wineries are calling for Alberta's premier to take action and eliminate the fees.
She's championing free trade. At the same time, she's championing a tax that we never had before.
Some wineries say Alberta's fees are so high that it's now cheaper for them to sell into the U.S. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Penticton.
Another sunny South Coast day. Darius has your BC-wide weather forecast coming up. A motion is expected tonight at Nanaimo City Council that will call for the removal of an overdose prevention site right next to City Hall. As Claire Palmer explains, the site has been getting a lot of attention in recent weeks.
This overdose prevention site, the source of controversy at Nanaimo City Hall for weeks. Right here, next to City Hall. Staff are concerned over safety and public disorder. At first, a staff report proposed a fence, which got voted down by council. And now, a councillor motion to remove the site altogether.
With a motion like this from Councillor Thorpe, that's good. It gets people talking. It gives the governments and Island Health a little poke in the ribs and go, are you really doing the right thing?
Mayor Leonard Krogh says there's no question that overdose prevention sites save lives, but he says his and his city staff's safety are at risk, and he wants the province to show data that all this risk is worth it.
Councillor Thorpe is speaking on behalf of a large segment of the community who are frustrated, fearful, don't feel comfortable coming downtown.
He says the people of Nanaimo are looking for more long-term and real solutions, like more funding for shelter beds and involuntary care.
It's an evaluation. Is that worth the street disorder, the crime it attracts, the damage to the community, and the belief that it just enables deep addiction to continue with no real significant benefit in sight?
The motion is scheduled to be debated Monday night, but the mayor says an actual decision may be deferred until later. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
A new study out of UBC is looking at the use of contraception in BC after the provincial government began covering the cost of prescription birth control in 2023. That study shows a jump in birth control prescriptions overall, but also reveals that users opted for longer-lasting options that come with more costs up front over cheaper but shorter-acting options. That study's lead author is here with us now. Laura Schumers is an assistant professor at UBC in the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So out of this study, what are people opting for?
Yeah, so what we found is that for the most part, the policy led to an increase in the use of what we call long-acting reversible contraception. And that includes both intrauterine contraceptive devices, or IUDs, as well as the newly available subdermal contraceptive implant.
Wow.
And these are these provide contraceptive coverage for at least 3 years and up to even 10 years, and are highly effective, with less than 1% of users becoming pregnant in each year of use.
Interesting. And was there any particular reason you think why those who chose IUDs and longer lasting options did so over the cheaper but shorter acting options?
Well, what this study really showed us is that there were indeed cost-related barriers to contraception, and these cost-related barriers were driving contraceptive method selection among women and pregnancy-capable individuals across the province. So this tells us that those cost barriers were especially present for long-acting methods. These can cost up to $450 upfront, and for some people that is simply out of reach.
When it comes to the length of use of an IUD or another or subdermal device, how long can somebody use it for?
Yeah, they last for at least 3 years and up to even 10 or 12 years, depending on the specific device.
Wow. Okay. And in terms of what do you think this means for women and users of these devices?
So this tells us that we need to do, as a health system and health systems across Canada, a better job in providing unencumbered access to contraception. And we can see that BC's policy made great strides in improving access. If people didn't need this policy change, we would have seen no effect. But instead, this is telling us there was great unmet demand for contraception, and that unmet demand was especially concentrated in the most effective long-acting methods.
And when it comes to numbers of people who perhaps since the province started covering this, how many more people are using these devices?
Yeah, we found an increase of 14,000 users overall across BC, and most of those, about 80%, so 11,400, were new users of long-acting reversible contraception.
Overall, why do you think this kind of thing is important for the public to know and for you to study?
So within BC, this tells us that BC's policy change was important and worked. Across the country, this is important and timely as discussions about federal pharmacare and whether or not additional agreements between the federal government and provincial and territorial governments will indeed take place, so that this becomes a reality across Canada. This tells us it was needed in BC and worked. So we need to be sure that this kind of accessibility is available for people across Canada.
So this can be kind of a model, you think, for other provinces and other systems?
Yes, absolutely. When federal pharmacare was announced, in fact, we were told by the Federal Minister of Health that we would be looking to BC to see how important and effective this policy change was. And now we have those results out today, and it tells us that, yes, this policy matters and pharmacare is important and should remain a provincial and federal priority.
All right. Laura Schumers, we appreciate your time and your expertise. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Still with health, a new report is exploring how virtual care is shaping healthcare access in BC. The province has built a network of virtual medical services to try to improve access in rural and First Nations communities. More now from the CBC's Jennifer Yoon.
The program is called Real-Time Virtual Support, and the idea is to connect rural doctors and nurses with their colleagues who might have more specialized interest and expertise in some areas of medicine. The program, which was done in British Columbia, has been getting more people using it year to year, according to a new report published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal. And that might mean a video call between the healthcare practitioner in rural British Columbia and somebody who is somewhere else in British Columbia. That might also mean really hands-on support. So for example, while a mom is giving birth, especially if a baby comes early before the mom has a chance to be flown south where there's a birthing unit at a hospital or a clinic, if the baby comes early, the doctor who is supporting virtually might be in the corner through an iPad, helping the nurse or the doctor who perhaps hasn't helped a mom give birth in a couple of years, helping that person bring that new baby into the world. Pediatrician Dr. Melissa Paquette is one of the doctors who helps support her colleagues in rural and remote British Columbia.
Delivering babies is more than just like catching them as they come out. Delivering babies involves the knowing what to do, what to watch for, what to check, what the steps are in supporting babies. So they did a lovely job. They called us really early to say, she's in labor. We aren't able to get her out as soon as possible. We've already notified the transport system, but she won't be able to leave our site until after she's had the baby.
It's an effort that's much needed in several parts of Canada, says Dr. Gavin Parker, who is the head of the Society of Rural Physicians of Canada. He says that this is a program that addresses how overstretched and under-resourced some of these communities can be when it comes to healthcare. But he says it doesn't quite address the root of the problem, the heart of the problem.
I think anything that provides better access to rural patients is an advantage. But I think what this study underlies is the fact that we are significantly understaffed in family medicine in the rural areas. It's a problem that's been going on for a long time, but it's been exacerbated in recent years.
Parker says that this program is like a lifeboat for many communities, but he says at some point we have to start addressing the causes of the staff shortages in rural Canada. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, after working from home for years, more Canadian employees are being ordered back into offices. As Nisha Patel explains, many staff are not happy.
Trains are packed and sidewalks crowded as more companies require workers to return to the office.
I have to go on site. I would prefer work from home.
A new Angus Reid survey says 79% of Canadian workers say they'd prefer remote or hybrid work. Out of those who have been asked to be back on site, 51% are upset or very upset. 32% say it didn't make a difference. Only 17% were pleased.
A lot of workers push back against the narrative that you need to be in the office in order to be productive, because the pandemic taught us that, in fact, we can have business as usual.
But in a tougher economy, workers have less leverage.
There is more opportunity for employers to sort of compel workers to do what the organizations want.
4 of Canada's big banks are reining in remote work. Employees will need to work from the office 4 days a week in the fall. Starbucks, too, its CEO telling staff, "We are reestablishing our in-office culture because we do our best work when we're together." And Rogers is reportedly asking workers to be in the office full-time in the new year.
If you are recalling your employees, you do need to give pretty substantial notice.
This lawyer says workers need to take a close look at their contract if they're unhappy with return to office mandates.
If the term is in your contract that this is a fully remote position, it's clear. Your employer can't change that term of your employment.
Workers have been vocal about the benefits of hybrid schedules, saving them time, money, and offering some work-life balance.
I think if you're a professional and you're objective-driven, then it's much better that you give people the flexibility to be where they work the best.
While the tides against working from home may be turning, workers will likely find it tough to give up. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
There is a new and renewed push for greater peace and stability in the Middle East. A revival of the concept of a two-state solution involving Israel and Palestine. That's next. The deadline for reaching a trade deal between Canada and the U.S. is just days away now. Mark Carney says negotiations with Ottawa are at an intense phase, but the Prime Minister says he will not settle for a deal unless it's good for Canadians. David Thurton explains.
In the birthplace of Confederation, Mark Carney spoke about how he's making a deal for Canada.
The assurance for Canadian business, for Canadians, is we will only sign a deal that's the right deal, that's a good deal for Canada.
The outcome is still uncertain, but the Prime Minister offered a glimpse into trade talks.
The negotiations are at intense phase. It's a complex negotiation. You see with the various trade deals that have been agreed by other jurisdictions.
Carney's comments follow this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The head of the European Commission and the U.S. President signed a preliminary agreement, the European Union settling for a 15% tariff on most of its goods.
I knew it at the beginning, and it was indeed very tough, but we came to good conclusions for both sides.
This is probably the biggest deal ever reached in any capacity, trade or beyond trade.
The question now, what will Canada's deal look like, and will it resemble the others the U.S. has signed?
Important as we are in terms of trade numbers to the U.S., it's hard to see how if Japan, Indonesia, the UK, the EU have all agreed to a baseline tariff, will somehow be exempt.
It is likely that that 15% will be considered by the Trump administration as almost a baseline tariff.
The Prime Minister, though, says Canada's trading relationship with the U.S. looks different.
So there are similarities, there are differences.
One notable difference, the extent the U.S. relies on Canada for its oil. We send them about 4 million barrels per day, a point of leverage, Carney suggested, as the trade deadline looms. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
There is a new diplomatic push today for greater stability and peace in the Middle East. A UN conference is reviving the concept of a two-state solution involving Israel and Palestine. The talks come as the war in Gaza nears the 22-month mark. Journalist Mitch McCann has been following the latest.
Foreign ministers and delegates gathered here at the UN in New York to discuss how to navigate and implement a two-state solution. That is, a Palestinian state alongside Israel living in peace in the Middle East. Now, working in this building, covering the UN, it's fair to say there are many conferences and summits that don't always lead to meaningful change. But the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres this morning underscored how important it is to him that something concrete steps come from this conference, especially at such a critical moment in the Middle East. Here is Antonio Guterres.
Today's conference is a rare and indispensable opportunity. We must ensure that it does not become another exercise in well-meaning rhetoric. It can and must serve as a decisive turning point, one that catalyzes irreversible progress towards ending the occupation and realizing our shared aspiration for a viable two-state solution.
The US continues, of course, to be a staunch supporter of Israel, and in a report from Reuters earlier today, they quoted the US State Department, which said this conference is, quote, a gift to Hamas, which continues to reject a ceasefire proposals accepted by Israel that would lead to the release of hostages and bring calm in Gaza. So the US is not on board, and Israel is not either. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, said this conference does not promote a solution, but rather deepens the illusion. He said instead of demanding the release of hostages and working to dismantle Hamas, the conference organisers are engaging in discussions that are disconnected from reality. So Israel and the United States, the two nations that won't be involved in this. What cannot be overlooked here at this conference is that it comes at a very critical time, given what we are seeing right now in the Middle East and these images of starvation that are being broadcast around the world. Israel is certainly under a mountain of pressure here at the UN as many countries call for more aid to be delivered to Gaza immediately.
Cambodia and Thailand have now agreed to a ceasefire after 5 days of fierce fighting that displaced more than 300,000 people.
Both Cambodia and Thailand reached a common understanding as follows. 1. An immediate and unconditional ceasefire with effect from 24 hours local time, midnight, on 28th July 2025.
Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, flanked by his Thai and Cambodian counterparts, he described the truce as a vital first step towards de-escalation. Thailand was not interested in mediation at first, but agreed after Donald Trump warned the trade talks would not continue until the fighting stopped. At least 36 people have been killed in the conflict since it began last Thursday. Hostilities erupted after a landmine explosion injured Thai soldiers. Darius Madavi is here with the BC-wide weather forecast. Humidex, but we're going to start across the country, right?
That's right. We're starting
that's
over in
hot.
Ontario. Yeah, quite the heat over in Ontario. These are Humidex values. So this is adding the humidity, and I'd say that these are even a little bit lower in terms of the estimates. These were the forecasted ones. I think Toronto actually hit 40 in terms of that Humidex value today. So extreme heat happening over on the other side of the country that will start to recede over the next few days. These are our highs today in terms of pure temperatures, not Humidex values. This is what we're looking at tomorrow. A slight bit of recession, mostly in parts of Atlantic Canada and central Ontario, less so in southern Ontario. Then on Wednesday, even more temperatures start to come down, and then even more so on Thursday. So some of that heat starting to recede here, although down south of the border, the U.S. still looking extremely hot over the next few days, especially eastern sections of the country. The other thing I wanted to highlight was smoke across Canada today. Very tightly concentrated on the prairies, but also heading over into eastern Canada. Some little pockets of very intense smoke in other areas as well. And this is, of course, surface smoke, not higher elevation smoke, not haze. So particularly nasty air quality, especially, again, in those central parts of the prairies. But if we turn our attention here to BC, not too much happening. I mean, we had some thunderstorms today. We had some severe ones down in the Kootenay region. But with that being said, really, besides that, not too much excitement except for that heat that is building in across BC. As you can see, a little bit of precipitation potential up in the northwest over the next couple of days. Some thunderstorms are possible tomorrow, though much more isolated than they were today. Most places seeing very little risk for the first time in a while, especially in the interior, so good news there. But those highs are continuing to climb. As you can see tomorrow, hitting the mid-30s in places like Kamloops and down in the Boundary region. And then we will continue to see that into Wednesday and then Thursday as well. Although Thursday, temperatures do start to moderate a little bit here on the coast. They are building up into the 30s. Humidex values will be up into the mid-30s by Wednesday, and then Thursday and into the weekend, we'll start to see those moderate a little bit. A bit of surface smoke is possible in some places tomorrow, but overall, pretty calm besides that heat. And then here's our 5-day forecast and a few days of sunshine. Then some cloud starts to build in, mostly high cloud, and then potential for a shower, but I'd say remains a very low chance.
Okay. Thank you very much, Darius.
Thank you.
And this next story is a good way to cool down. An adrenaline-soaked thrill ride raced out of Nanaimo's harbor on Sunday as the city's World Championship Bathtub Race roared into its 58th year.
Just head out and go. Try my best.
It's brutal. I raced in '94 and I still have a limp.
There's just some kind of weird adrenaline rush you get when you're out there that you just can't compete with. So
yeah, I grew up in Nanaimo, so I've watched it basically my whole childhood, and then I always wanted to do it, so I finally did it.
The wild sport was started again almost 60 years ago by Nanaimo's pirate mayor, the late Frank May. This year, the event lured 42 daring racers who were willing to put their hearts, bodies, and tubs to the test. Coming up, a group of people in South Granville do not want a tall piece of art rolling into their neck of the woods. We'll hear from them and the artist after this. A well-known piece of public art in Vancouver is getting a new home.
But as Renee Lucas reports, some residents near the new site will not be rolling out the welcome wagon.
Darlene Forst says from her living room window across Granville Street, she'll be staring directly at Am Rapture.
They're treating our neighborhood as a storage locker for a piece of art they don't know what to do with.
The sculpture, 5 real scrapped cars crushed and stacked atop the trunk of an old-growth cedar, was initially erected near Main Street SkyTrain station in 2014, part of the Vancouver Biennale art exhibition, and meant to stay only 2 years. The piece was eventually removed in 2021 for restoration and birdproofing due to a pigeon infestation, but future deconstruction plans for the Georgia Viaduct mean the sculpture can't go back to its original location. Instead, it will go here, at the south end of the Granville Street Bridge, next to the city centennial marker in Granville Loop Park. Forst says she's concerned about another bird infestation, starting an online petition calling for the decision by the city to be reversed. Marcus Bocott says he created the piece as a comment on consumption culture and how urban life is compounding pressures on the environment.
I mean, our culture is as bereft, I think, in some ways, as our environment is. They called the piece edgy. well, great.
The city says public consultation isn't standard practice when it considers locations for public art. It says it recognizes the subjective nature of art, as not everyone will appreciate a piece in the same way.
We saw the posters go up about 3 weeks ago and looked at it and we thought, really? They're going to stick that so everybody in our neighborhood can see it every morning?
I don't see a problem with the location. I understand it's a statement, like a message. We see messages every day on the street in different spots.
I don't know the negativity towards it. I don't see why it wouldn't be a great spot for it. I'd like to see it not come back.
Forst says she'd like to see the city halt installation of the piece and reassess the project. As for what the artist thinks of the community pushback,
just hang fire, just relax. You know, it's a sculpture. It is, like everything else in life, temporary.
The city says the sculpture will remain in place for at least 10 years. Renee Lucas, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hang fire. New phrase. There we go. Who knew? We are well into the search for BC's best symbol.
Among the top contenders in the round of 16, and unfortunately destroying my beloved Stellar's Jay, the mighty orca.
But as Justin McElroy explains, our relationship with that apex ocean predator has dramatically changed over time.
If you were to have asked British Columbians what their favorite symbol of this area was 100 years ago, few would have said orcas.
They were seen as an animal that was quite terrifying and something to be feared. In fact, even their name they were given, killer whale.
To many, orcas were fearful beasts, criminals, and there was even discussion of using machine guns to kill them.
But we've learned so much about them since. And I guess they were tarnished with a bad reputation to begin.
Today they are beloved, turned into mascots. Every birth a cause for celebration, every death a cause for mourning. But why? Hollywood has helped, but so too have changes in British Columbia's culture.
It's very much been about how the people in this region have been transformed culturally, economically.
Jason Colby is a historian who wrote a book on the history of our relationship with orcas. He says a turning point came in the 1960s when some were captured, put in aquariums, studied by researchers, and made to entertain humans.
We were the first region to capture and display them, and even though that practice is rightly criticized these days, it was really the spark that transformed our relationship.
As we got to know them, we learned about their deep family ties and playful personalities. And as BC's environmental movement grew, they became intertwined with the idea of preserving what has been here long before we were.
Orcas have become a really potent symbol of a redemptive narrative that BC has about itself.
It's a fascinating example of how a thing can become a powerful symbol, not through anything the symbol does, but how our connection to it changes.
We celebrate orcas for what they are and sort of what they, how exciting it is to see them from the ferry or from the boat. But I think they're also quite symbolic of how we've changed in BC and that most of us regard as pretty positive. And so I think that's one of the compelling reasons why we might consider it the symbol of BC.
Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
Canadian swimming superstar Summer McIntosh has won her second gold medal at the World Championships in Singapore, winning the 200-meter individual medley.
And Summer McIntosh is going to win it, and win it very, very well. It's Walsh in second place. McIntosh takes another gold medal for Canada.
The 18-year-old from Toronto came just shy of the world record she set last month in Victoria. She also clinched her first gold of the tournament at the 400-meter freestyle.
McIntosh hopes to become the second swimmer in history to win 5 solo titles at a single long course world championships. This, of course, after she won 3 gold medals in 4 individual events at the Paris Olympics. Awesome.
Gonna be quite the thing to watch.
No kidding.
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6.
And we will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. See you then.